Okay, so this is what we covered in the last lecture. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, this is very important. So not always can expectation go through a function. And one interesting exercise for you is give an example of a function g such that this is not true. Give an example g is a function from real numbers to real numbers such that this happens. Okay, so it's a very interesting example. Yeah, it shouldn't be hard. Yeah. Then we said that okay, if you take constants, yeah, you can think of constants as also a random variable. Random variable maps omega to the real 9, and the constant random variable alpha is just something which maps all the sample space into the constant alpha. Okay, so expected value of alpha is alpha. Expected value of alpha times x becomes alpha times the expected value of x. So plus beta. So in the simple cases, this is true. Yeah. In the simple cases, it is true that expected value of g of x becomes g of expected value of x. Yeah, but it's not true in general. So it is true when your function g is linear. Is linear, then expected value of g of x is g of expected value of x. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So we said expected value is kind of the average value of your random variable. But we also said that it is the average value. It doesn't mean that that the probability of that expected value is high. Yeah. So we saw an example where the probability of the expected value is 0. Yeah. So let me just turn off my video then. Okay. Yeah. So okay. So we already said that. Yeah. So let's say this is the expected value of the random variable x. Yeah. And let's say so this is the y-axis is the probability mass function of x. Okay. It could be possible that okay, the probability mass function is high here. It is high here. Yeah. The average value, the expected value is this quantity, but the probability of x taking the expected value is actually 0. Yeah, but yeah, so expected value doesn't mean that the probability of getting that value is high. It can be 0 also. Okay. So yeah, so there is something called variance, okay, which tells you how much okay the random variable is close to the expected value. Okay, so what is the variance? Yeah. So before we can talk about that, so we'll say what the second moment is. Okay. The second moment is expected value of x squared. Okay. We already know what expected value is. So expected value of x squared is called the second moment, and in general the kth moment of a random variable is expected value of x raised to k. So this is basically summation over x belong to the real numbers. Yeah. X raised to k times the probability that the random variable takes the value x. Yeah. And the variance of x is basically equal to expected value of x minus. Yeah. So let's call the expected value equal to mu. Yeah, so the expected value, typically we denote it as mu. Okay, this is x minus mu. This is the difference of x from mu. Square it and then compute the expected value. Okay, just a second. Hello. Yeah, now the internet should be a little more faster. It was connected to the wrong network. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, what were we saying? Yeah. So we define what is called the variance. Yeah. And the variance of x is you take x, yeah, subtract it from the mean. So for each x, I will look at the mean, the value, the difference from the mean, square it. Yeah, we square it, yeah, and then take the expectation. Uh, yeah. So before we go further, so we need to understand why are we squaring it? Anybody has an answer? Why should we square this?
So there may be negative values also, which are less than mean and which are greater than mean, that may sum up to 0 also.
Yeah, yeah. So in fact, what is the expected value of x minus mu?
Sir, it is deviation from the mean. The
Yeah.
data
What is this value?
0.
Why is it 0? Because this is x plus alpha. You already said, alpha x plus beta is you just yeah, do that. It's a linear function. This is just expected value of x minus expected value of mu. Mu is a constant. Mu is not. Mu is a constant. Yeah. So this is actually expected value of x minus mu. What is expected value of x? That is equal to mu. This is equal to 0. Okay. So what is the variance again? From x, you subtract the mean. So for every particular value of x, you look at the distance from the mean. Yeah. And take the square of it. Why do we take the square of it? Otherwise, there will be positive terms, negative terms, and things will cancel out. Yeah. So we take the square of it and then take the expectation. So this is the average distance, yeah, of each x from the mean value. Yeah. So suppose you have two distributions. Okay, so you have a distribution like this, and you have a distribution like this. Which distribution will have higher variance? Yeah. So why is it the first? Nobody wants to answer.
So the distance of x from mean is higher in the first case.
Yeah, yeah. So here most of the x is sitting here. Most of the probability is sitting here and here. Yeah. And when you compute this, so the most of the probability, that's a 0.5 probability is sitting here, and 0.5 probability is sitting here. So with 0.5 probability, the distance is going to be large. Yeah. Here most of the probability is sitting around the mean itself. So when you do, expected value. So this is so. Just a second. So when you do this computation, yeah, you will have a summation over x, yeah. So x minus mu into probability of x equal to x. Yeah? So most of the high probability values are very close to mu. So x minus mu would be very small. So the variance would be very small for this. Variance will be very high for this because most of the probability is sitting on x values, which is far from the mean. Yeah, so this is variance is large. Yeah. So yeah, so this is the formula for the variance. Okay, and what is the physical meaning of variance? It is what is the average distance from the mean. Yeah. So the mean doesn't tell us how the probability distribution looks like. Mean just tells us what is the average value. The probability of the average value might even be 0. Yeah, the probability of the average value can even be 0. Yeah, but the variance tells us, yeah, how is the probability distributed around the mean. Yeah, so if the probability is distributed far away from the mean, like this case, then the variance will be large. The variance is small. For example, if the variance is 0, what does that mean?
The
All values are
probability of
equal.
getting the mean value is 1.
Yes. Yeah, that means all your probability is sitting in your mean. Yeah, that means variance is 0. Variance is large, meaning okay, your random variable is most of the probabilities are like farther and farther away from the mean. Yeah. What are the so we will come to applications of variance. That's what the rest of the course is going to be about. So don't worry about it. Okay. So this is the formula. We will solve. You can solve practical problems using this. Okay, and that's what the rest of the course is going to be about. So what does variance intuitively tell you? It tells you, I mean, how is the probability distribution? I mean, how is it distributed around the mean? Okay. So one important thing about variance is there's actually a simple formula for calculating variance. Yeah. So this is the standard formula. If you expand out the standard formula, you will get this. Yeah, this is the this is the formula for expected value of a function of a random variable. Now, can you expand this out? Yeah, so this is sum a minus b the whole square. So let's expand it out. Yeah, this is summation over x squared times pxx, yeah, minus 2ab minus summation over x 2x into expected value of x, yeah, into px of x. So I think I'm complicating a lot, but yeah, let me just find some space here. Plus summation over x, expected value of x, the whole square times px of x. Yeah. So what is this first term? Expected value of x squared. So this is basically equal to expected value of x squared. This particular term is expected value of x squared. What is this particular term? Yeah. So there is 2 I can take outside. Yeah. Expected value is also a constant. That also I can take outside. Yeah. And then you have summation over x, x times p of x. And finally,
expectation of x.
yeah, so this quantity is expectation of x, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So and finally, what is this? So this is expected value of x. The whole squared is a constant. So this is just expected value of x, the whole square. And what is this quantity? Yeah. So this works out to be expected value of x squared minus 2 into expected value of x, the whole square, plus expected value of x squared. This actually works out to this quantity. Okay.
Yes.
So whenever you have variance, this is the basic formula, but you expand it out, you get a formula like this. So you look at the second moment. So this is the second moment, right? So this is what is called the second moment. And what is this? This is just the square of the mean. Okay. Yeah. So is the variance always positive? Greater than or equal to 0? Can it take negative values?
Always
No.
positive.
Always
Greater than or
first.
Always positive. Always positive.
It's a square, expectation of a square. How can it take negative? Now, so we said that for expectation is linear. Expected value of alpha x plus beta is alpha times expected value of x plus beta. But for variance, variance, what happens? Yeah, suppose you have a random variable. Yeah, so let's say you have a random variable like this. So the mean is sitting here. And let's say, okay, there is some distribution like this. Okay, so there is some distribution like this. Now I just shift the mean horizontally. Okay, so I'll just move this random variable. So I'll just, so this is the random variable x, and y is x plus 10. What will happen to a distribution? The distribution will become like this. Do you agree? Yeah, so
Yes.
yeah, so the distribution just shifts. Suppose the variance of x, typically this is called sigma squared. Okay, so mean is always called mu, and the variance is always called sigma squared for some reason. Okay, it's a standard notation. What is the variance of y? Yeah.
Sigma squares are same as of before.
Why is that?
So because the function is just shifted.
Yeah.
So distance of every point from the mean is same as previous.
Yeah. Everybody followed that. The distance of every point from the mean didn't change. Every point got shifted. Yeah. So you can derive it from the formula also, but intuitively speaking, if we understand what variance is, every point got shifted. So the distance from the mean didn't change at all. Yeah. So the variance of y is going to be equal to variance of x. Equal to sigma squared. Okay. Now, yeah. So what happens if you, let's say you multiply x by alpha. Okay. So let's say c is equal to, let's say 2 times x. 2 times x. Okay. So what will happen if you multiply x by 2? How will that probability density look like? Yeah. So what is going to be the mean?
2 mu.
2 mu is the mean. Okay. So let's say it's 2 mu is going to be the mean. And what is going to happen to the figure? Yeah. So earlier this was here, so it will go to some other value. Okay. And so let's say this point to this point there was some distance. Yeah.
So that will be same. Just the y coordinate of every point will get doubled.
Now, suppose this particular point had a distance a from mu. Yeah. So what happens to that distance when you go to y, c?
It will be doubled.
It will be doubled. So essentially it's going to be this same figure, but it's like horizontally kind of pulled sideways. Yeah. let's say this is some point A. So this will be like yeah. So that's what happens when you multiply things. Yeah. Do you think the variance will change?
Yes, sir.
So now things are pulled out. So things are farther away from the mean. Yeah. So actually the variance of y is going to be 4 times the variance of x.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, if you just substitute in the formula and just work it out, you will get this is the case. Okay. So you just substitute this in the formula and compute the variance of c. Yeah. You will get that there's a square there. So 2 square will come out and yeah, it will become 4. That's what in terms of formula what is happens. But intuitively this is what is happening. Okay, so we understand what variance is, we understand what expectation is. Yeah, so one more thing. So everything that we did with sample spaces and events, we can also do for random variables. Yeah, there is also a what is called a conditional PMF, conditional probability mass function. There's also a concept of independence of random variable. There's also a base rule for random variables. Okay, so everything that we talked about for events can also be done for random variables. And it's exactly the same, not very different at all. Yeah. So we can define, so I mean a conditional PMF. So let's say A is an event. A is event. A is a subset of the sample space. So we can talk about the probability of X given the event A. And what is that? It is the probability of X takes the value X conditioned on the event day. Yeah, so we know what this is, yeah, and we know what this is. And how do you formulate this? This is probability of X equal to X, and yeah, so there is an event like this. So this is intersection A divided by probability of A. So that is what you mean by conditional PMF. Okay, we'll see examples later. Okay, but it is not at all different. You already are familiar with it. Similarly, we can say expectation of a random variable conditioned on A. Okay, what is that? So you need to do expectation, but using the conditional PMF. Okay, so let's see one very simple example. It's a very simple example which we'll quickly go through. Yeah. So let's say this is the random variable. It takes the value 1 with probability 1/4. It is just a you are throwing the dice once. Yeah, 4-sided dice once, and this is the random variable. The number that comes up is the random variable. Yeah, so the random variable and the sample space is not at all different in this simple case. A is the event that X is greater than or equal to 2. So 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so what is the conditional PMF of X given A? So PMF of X given A is, so let's say so X equal to, let's say 1. What is PMF of X given A? Zero, because we have conditioned on the event that X is greater than or equal to 2. This is going to be 0. P of X given A of 2 is going to be how much? Yeah.
1/3.
It is 1/3. So you need to use this formula and do it. Yeah, but it is uniform probability. You are conditioning on the thing data on equal to 2, so it will normalize and become uniform on the rest of the options. So this is going to be 1/3. So everything else is going to be 1/3. Okay. So what is the expected value of X conditioned on A? So it is going to be 0 times 1 plus 1/3 times 2 plus 1/3 times 3 plus 1/3 times 4. Does anybody have a doubt how I got this? Is that clear to everyone? Okay. I'm just expanding this formula, that's all.
So can you explain what? So can you explain this last part once?
Yeah. So you agree that the conditional PMF is this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So x given a for 3 and 4 is also 1 by 3.
Okay.
So what is the expected value of x given a? What is the formula? It is summation over x times p of x given a of x. So it is 0 times x 1, 1 by 3 times 2, 1 by 3 times 3, 1 by 3 times 4. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay.
I'm just applying a formula, nothing more.
So what is the meaning of p x by a there in the formula? Means how to implement that? I am not
Sorry.
getting that. So in the formula of expectation x by a, there it is written p x by a. So what is means how to get that?
So we so x equal to x given a, it is probability of x equal to x intersection a by probability of a. This is the definition of conditional probability, no? Probability
Oh,
of
okay.
a given b is a intersection b by probability of b. You just need to apply that.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay.
And that's what we did for getting the conditional distribution here. Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah. So we already saw geometric PMF. Let's skip this. Okay. So we already saw geometric PMF and what is the expectation and all we saw. Yeah. So just like we had the total probability theorem, we have a total expectation theorem. Yeah. So what was the total probability theorem? Suppose A1, A2 up to AN are disjoint events, so that their union is the entire sample space. So you are kind of subdividing the sample space into this disjoint events. Total probability theorem said that this, if you want to compute the probability of B, yeah, you just find the probability of B given A and take the average according to this probability of AIs. That's what this was, right? This is what we did previously. Yeah. So, I mean, actually from that thing itself, it follows that if you look at the PMF of a random variable X, yeah, it is nothing but the conditional PMF. We just said what the conditional PMF is. Yeah? Conditioned on this EA1 to AN, what is the PMF? You just take the average of that PMF functions with the probabilities of A1 to AN. Okay. Yeah, it is. I mean, it happens just because of this formula only. It is just restatement of this for the case of random variables. So yeah, what this implies is, even if you want to compute the expectation, we just compute the expectation conditioned on each of these events and then average them according to the probabilities of AIs. Okay. Yeah, so this is the same total probability theorem, but we are doing it for random variables and probability mass functions. Excuse me. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you can look at some examples. So we'll soon see some examples. Okay. We'll see examples where all of these things are used together. So we'll see interesting examples. Yeah. So finally, I want to do one more thing. So you could have multiple random variables. Okay, so let's say you have, let's say you are throwing two four-sided dice. Yeah, and we said, okay, the outcome of the first dice can be a random variable. The outcome of the second dice can be another random variable. Yeah, when you have two random variables, yeah, there is something called the joint PMF, joint probability mass function. And what is that? It is basically you need to specify the values for both the random variables. So this is the probability of x equal to x and y equal to y. Yeah. So yeah, so you have so it's basically a table. So yeah, PMF was just I mean like a vector. It's a one-dimensional thing. Joint PMF is a table like this. Okay, so yeah. Now, so for each value of x and each value of y, you will get the corresponding, yeah, the probability value in this table. Yeah. Now, if you sum up all the entries in this table, what will you get? So this is, we are summing up all the entries in this table. You will get 1. Okay. Suppose I sum up only one column. Suppose I come up this column. What will I get?
Py equals to 1.
How did you get Py equal to 1?
Because we are calculating Py equals to 1 for every value of x. We are summing it up.
What did you apply there?
Common sense.
Common sense, but actually what you applied was the total expectation theorem. Okay. Yeah, I mean, entire probability is only common sense actually. Just that you need to apply the right common sense at the right place. Okay. So what is this A1 to AN? Yeah. Yeah. So this is the probability of A1 and B. Yeah, and you are just summing up over those things. And, so this y x equal to 1, x equal to 2, x equal to 3, and x equal to 4 are disjoint events which cover entire the sample space. So you are computing the probabilities for each of them. Yeah. So this, if you sum up the column, you get probability of y equal to 1. So summation over x equal to 1 to 4. Yeah. Pxy. Yeah. X comma y equal to 1. So if you sum up the first column, you will get probability of y equal to 1. If you sum up the second column, you will get y equal to 2 and so on. And what about if you sum up the rows? Yeah, so obviously it has to be x equal to 1. Yeah. So is that clear? So the probability mass function of two random variables is this table, and if you sum up everything, you will get 1. If you sum up row wise, you will get yeah, probability mass function of the first random variable. The other way, if you sum up, you will get probability mass function of the second random variable. Yeah, and so this this thing is called marginal distributions. Marginal. And yeah, whenever you have multiple random variables, there is a joint distribution of that random variables together, which will be a table like this. And then there will be the marginal distribution, which is the PMF of individual random variables. Okay, which is basically summing up the rows or the columns. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so given multiple random variables, we have seen already 3 PMFs. Yeah. So given 2 random variables, there is already P of x is there, that is the first marginal. P of y is there, which is the marginal of the second random variable, and P of xy is there, which is the joined joint distribution. Yeah, actually there is more distributions. There's also something called probability of x given y. Yeah. So P of x is basically taking a single value, right? This is taking a single value, this is taking 2 values. So what do you think P of xy will take? Does it take 2 values? Yeah. So P of xy is also like a 2 variable function. So it will also take x comma y. Yeah? And this is essentially the probability of x equal to x given y equal to y. Okay. So I'm just defining a new mass function. This is the conditional distribution, conditional probability mass function. Yeah. So if we can define x given y, you can also define y given x. Yeah. So given a joint, given two random variables, there is P of X. Okay, there is a probability mass function like that. There is a probability mass function like this. There is a joint probability distribution. There is also a conditional probability distribution. Yeah, so it is actually two variables, but it is typically written like this. Okay. Then also there is y given x. Yeah. So yeah, and so given two random variables, there are these 5 things. Yeah, and you should understand all these 5 things, what they are. And they are very important. They are like practically used. We will see plenty of practical examples where all these things are important. Okay. So you know this, this, and this. Everybody understands that. This also, the other two also, actually you understand it. This is just the probability of x equal to x given y equal to y. And this is the probability of y equal to y given x equal to x. Okay. Yeah. And there are relationships between them. Okay, so if you just sum up this in the rows and column wise, you will get the first two. Yeah. So what can you say? What is the relationship between this one and this one? What is the relationship between 3 and 4? Anybody wants to give it a try?
Like Bayes theorem, it can.
It's like Bayes theorem only. So P of xy of x comma y is nothing but P of x into x. What should I multiply here? Nobody wants to give it a try. Yeah.
Py.
Y given x. Yeah. So why is this true? Let's write out. So what is this thing? This is the probability of x equal to x and y equal to y. Right? And what is this by definition? This is the probability of x equal to x into the probability of y equal to y given x equal to x. And that's what I have written. Okay. And yeah, this you can also write it as probability of y into probability of x given y of x given y. Okay, so this is just notations. You are already familiar with all this. It's just a Bayes rule being applied. Okay, so yeah, so we need to understand this notation. So whenever you have a joint variable, two variables, you will have all these 5 distributions. Yeah. So given a problem, you need to think, I mean, which of the 5 distributions are being specified. What are the relationships between them? Yeah. Unless you clearly think in terms of these functions, you will get confused. You will never be able to solve the problem. Yeah. So yeah. So initially, at least I want you to understand what these 4 things are, the relationships between them, and yeah. So we'll see a couple of examples. Let's see a couple of examples. Yeah, maybe I will give a separate example. Okay, let's try out an example. So let's say there are 3 balls. Yeah, so our balls and bins thing. Yeah, so you have 3 balls. Yeah, 3 balls. Okay, let's say 4 balls and 3 bins. 4 balls and 3 bins. Okay, there are 4 balls and 3 bins. you are randomly throwing each of the ball into uniformly. So first ball I can is equally likely to be going to any of the 3 bins. Second ball is also equally likely to go into any of the 3 bins. Third ball is also equally likely going to any of the 3 bins. Fourth ball is also equally likely going into any of the 3 bins. Yeah. So X is the random variable. Okay, is number of balls in the first bin. Okay, X is Y is the random variable, number of non-empty bins. Is the random variable X and Y clear? Yeah. So does everybody know what the what is the PMF of X? Yeah, so yeah. So what are the values X can take?
0 to 4.
1,
0
2,
to 4.
3.
0 to 4. Okay, 0. Don't forget 0. Yeah, and what are the probabilities of those? Yeah, what are the probabilities of those? What is the probability that the first bin doesn't get any ball? Yeah.
2 by 3 raised to power 4.
Okay. One way to look at it is 1 minus probability that the number of balls in the first bin. If none of the balls go into the first bin, that means the first ball went to the other 3 by 4. Second ball also went to the other 3. So it is 3 by 4 raised to 4. Is that right? What should I write here? Sorry.
2 by 3 raised to 4.
2 by 3 raised to 4. Does anybody have a doubt about that? Yeah, the first ball I shouldn't throw to the first bin. It has to go to the other 2 bins, 2 by 3. Second ball also to the other 2 bins, 2 by 3, 2 by 3. Yeah, and 4 balls are there, so 2 by 3 raised to 4. Okay, so what about this? What should be this value?
One by 3 into 4 by 3 की power 3.
It is 1 by 3 into 2 by 3. 2 by 3.
Power 3.
Into 4 as well.
Yeah, why is this 4 coming from?
Because it can happen in 4 ways. So the first ball can go into the first bin, or maybe the second ball can go.
So you should be like, yeah, now by the way, you should be familiar with all this stuff. What about 2? So can you fill up all the entries? I am assuming that, okay, everybody is capable of filling all the entries. Okay. Yeah, I mean, by now you are very familiar with counting. Okay. So, yeah. So similarly, you can have a table for Y. Yeah, so Y is a bit more tricky. So what are the values Y can take?
Zero, 1, 2.
Before that, somebody says order matters, order doesn't matter. Actually, I mean, you assume that the balls are distinguishable or indistinguishable. Yeah, I mean, does it really matter with respect to this situation. I don't think in the random variables are defined without, it doesn't matter whether your balls are labeled or unlabeled. Okay, it doesn't matter whether the balls are unlabeled or unlabeled. The value here will come out to be the same. So we have to multiply by 4 since the first bin is given. No, because which ball went into the first bin? The first ball I equally likely to throw to 3 things. Yeah, so I'm assuming you are comfortable with counting and everything. Okay, so yeah, since many of you complain that I'm taking too many questions, I will move forward. Yeah, think about it. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Okay. Yeah, so what are the values y can take?
One, two, three.
Number
Zero,
of
one.
non-empty bins. There has to be at least one non-empty bin. Like, I mean, you cannot have every bin to be empty. So it has to be 1. It can be 2. It can be 3. Yeah. And you know also how to compute these probabilities.
So it can't be 0.
Can the number of non-empty bins be 0? Can the number of non-empty bins be 0? Non-empty, right? If you have 0 non-empty bins,
In every bin there is some ball.
is that possible? 0 empty bins is also possible. Okay. So, non-empty bins.
Sir, 0 to 2 is possible. 3 is not possible.
What do you mean by 0 non-empty bins? That means all the 3 is not possible. It's very confusing. Yeah? So who is confident and who wants to make an argument? What is the correct thing?
Sir, it will be 0, 1 and 2. 3 is not possible because all the beans are not empty here.
Yes, sir. He's correct.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just believing you. So y can take 0, 1, 2. Yeah. Yeah. So suppose all the 3 are non-empty. So all 3 bins cannot be non-empty. Are you saying?
It should be, I think, 1, 2, 3.
No, so
Non-empty means
yeah.
non-empty means it is filled. So 0 filled means then where did that 4 balls go?
Where did that 4 balls go? How can the number of non-empty bins be 0? There should be at least one non-empty bin, no?
Yeah, sir, it is confusing.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 is correct.
Yeah. So this probability is a confusing business. Okay, and even I get confused. So we need to be very careful. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, I hope. Yeah, I haven't made any mistake this time. But yeah. Fine. So do you know how to fill up these entries? It's not 0. I'm just saying. So let's fill up one entry because we don't have much time. We also want to look at the joint distribution. So let's say probability y equal to 1. So there is only one non-empty bin. What do you mean by there is only one non-empty bin? All the balls went into the same bin.
Yes.
Yeah. And all the balls could have gone into the first bin or the second bin or the third bin. Yeah. So there are 3 possibilities on choosing which bin everything went into. And then what's the possibility that all the things went into that particular bin? It is 1 by 3 whole raised to 4. Yeah, so Drew agrees with me. So yeah, I hope at least one person agrees with me. So this is possibly correct. Yeah. So yeah, so you can work out these things. Yeah, now you need to work out the joint distribution. Yeah. So X can take the values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Y can take the values 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so there is 5 into 3, there is 15 entries in this table. Okay, it's very annoying, but yeah, you need to one by one work out this 15 entries. Okay, but unfortunately things doesn't stop there. You also need to work out the entries in so this is X and this is Y. Yeah, so I suggest you spend some time, try to work out the entries in these 4 tables. Okay, many of the entries will become 0 and everything. So it's actually not 15 into 3 entries. Okay, so many of the entries will become 0 and everything. Yeah, it's a very good exercise trying to work out the entries in these 4 tables. And you should do once in this. This is like a simple example, but to be clear about the concept, you should do this once, at least once in your life. Okay, so let's try one particular entry. Okay, let's try one particular entry. So let's say X equal to, X can take the value 2. Yeah, and let's say Y can take the value 3. Yeah, so what is the probability of Y given X? Okay, of 3. Yeah, so this is the probability of Y equal to 3 given X equal to 2. Okay, yeah. So what is X? Is the number of balls in the first bin. So given that the first bin has 2 balls, yeah, what is the probability that the number of non-empty bins is 3? Anybody wants to attempt this? Yeah, so there is 3 bins. The first bin has 2 balls. Yeah? So there were 4 balls. So this is 1, 2, 3. That is the 3 bins, and there is 1, 2, 3, 4 balls. Yeah. So I mean, you're told that the first bin has 2 balls. Okay. And conditioned on that, what's the probability that Y equal to 3? That is, number of non-empty bins is 3. All the bins has some element.
1 by 2.
How did you get 1 by 2? Like,
there will be 4 possibilities. We have 2 empty bins left and 2 distinct balls. One way is that both the balls go to the second bin. Another is both go to the fourth bin. And then there are 2 ways.
Equal to 2. X equal to 2 meaning the first bin has 2 balls. It could be any of the 4 balls.
It can be any of the. Okay, that.
So, so it's tricky. So I will give you a shortcut. Remember, these 4 tables are not completely independent tables. There are relationship between these entries in these tables. Okay, so you don't, all the numbers are not completely independent. You don't need to separately calculate them. You know how to calculate this easily. You know how to calculate this easily. You also know how to calculate this easily. Maybe, okay. But then you can get the entry of this because there's a formula like this, no? If you know this and you know this, you also know that. Yeah. So, so instead of directly calculating this value, it's possibly easy to calculate this value first and this value, and then try with this value. Yeah, or in a different order. Okay, so yeah, so whenever you have it, yeah, try to make use of base rule and everything. If you do it from first, I mean, not always it won't be clear. Okay, base rule is very important, and that really helps in solving problems. Okay, so our time is already up. So I think I will ask the TAs to put this as the light quiz, a variant of this problem. Okay, so think hard about it. Okay, and try to solve it. Okay, this is from whatever you learned only. There's nothing new. mean, this is conditional probability. Everything is nothing new here. Counting only. Okay, so if you have been expert in that, you should be clear with this also. So if there is any questions, I'll quickly take one question and end the lecture.
Sir, in that last question,
Mhm.
why we cannot, like, that logic is only good enough that the first bin has 2 balls, then you put 2 balls, then the other will have 1. The balls be added.
Sorry, but which balls? The balls are also important, no?
So
There are multiple possibilities which can go into the first bin.
Okay, so those are balls. Here we'll consider balls identical or non-identical.
It doesn't matter, I think. This is the experiment I'm doing. I'm just taking one ball, throwing it into 3 bins. Second ball, throwing it into 3 bins. Third ball, throwing it into 3 bins. 4 ball, throwing. So I believe we already had an example. Sometimes it doesn't matter for the question whether you assume the balls to be distinguishable or indistinguishable.
Okay,
this is one of those questions. Yeah, but the bins are distinguishable. I already said first bin, second bin, third bin. So it's easier to work these things out assuming everything is distinguishable. Okay, just assume everything is distinguishable and try to solve the problem. Okay, so the balls are labeled 1 to 4. The bins are also labeled 1, 2, 3. So there is no confusion. Yeah, just work out in that case. Okay. So yeah, if there is, our time is up already. Okay. So yeah, we will have a TA session later. And yeah, try to work this out. This is a very good exercise. Yeah, I mean, it's non-trivial actually. It's not, everything is not obvious. Okay. So you need to think a bit harder. Also, please make a attempt at the questions, harder questions in the discussion forum. Okay. So many of you complain that, yeah, you are not getting to solve hard problems. So please attend those. Yeah. I will give you more problems. I mean, if you see that you are more active solving more problems, I can put more problems up. No problem with that. Okay. Okay. Thank you.